Okay, you can go.
Hi,
Yes.
I'm Kathy Johnson. Welcome to Town Talk. Once again, I have my guest, Margaret Beeman, professional horsewoman, with me today. Margaret, can you tell us what we're going to talk about today on our show?
Yes, I will, Kathy. First, I want to thank you for having me back again, and Lois and Noelle for appearing. It's just such a wonderful opportunity to work with all of you women and help preserve authentic horsemanship. It's a joy to me. I really appreciate it. If we can put the outline up, we'll start with what we're going to speak about today. We're going to talk about the 4 basic characteristics of the horse. I've broken everything down into outlines and groups so that we can focus on certain things or just see how they apply to horsemanship. If you look over on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see 4 basic characteristics. Those are self-preservation, pecking order, laziness, and reproduction. And there again, it's facts about a horse that we're talking about. It's not anybody's method. This isn't a discipline training session. This is let's learn a little bit more about the horse. So with that in mind, with those 4 basic characteristics and what we're talking about, Kathy, I'm going to ask you first. Over the past week, since the last show, can you think of anything that happened with you and your horse, or just you and your life, that has to do with one of those 4 basic characteristics? Does anything come to mind for you?
Oh, it most certainly does, Margaret. One of my deficits in riding is I have a fear of riding. I have a fear of falling off and a fear that the horse is going to run away with me and I won't have a strong enough seat to stay on or even stop him. So I would say self-preservation would be it. That is what the horse and I as the human have in common.
Right.
We both want self-preservation. The problem is that the human has to be the leader. And the human has to make the horse feel like he's going to be okay. And I know we talked about the herd leader. So I have to become the herd leader. Because I can think logically, and because I'm in control of my thoughts as a human being and don't have to rely totally on instinct, I have to force myself to keep reminding myself I'm the herd leader. Well, we were in the ring, and I'm on Calypso, and I see his ears go up. I learned that when a horse's ears pop up and he's looking, he's noticing something or he's experiencing something.
Right.
So I had all I could do not to stiffen up.
Right. Not to defend or protect yourself.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
like bring my hands
Right.
toward me, hold him back. And because I've learned from you, Margaret, that he can feel the tension.
Right.
And now he says to himself, oh no, she's upset and it must be something to be upset about. And I was right.
Yeah.
And off we go. So I had to really relax, not move around, act like we were just going about our business.
Right.
That was extremely difficult for me to take charge.
Right. After you did that, though, after you did that, how did you feel?
I felt like I accomplished something.
Right, and that's what you have to remember. You see, what you're doing is you're those connections that fire together, wire together, type of thing. You just had an experience, and you can build on that. And that's the main thing, is to get people who do have that fear to learn these things about the horses and do simple exercises on the ground that you can practice, where you can stand at a safe distance away from your horse. You can see the ears go, you can see the head come up, you can know that the horse's attention is gone someplace else. You can learn how to handle all that on the ground before you get in the saddle, and then at least you have something because you remembered. You remembered, I have to be there for him. And it's only a moment, it's only a second or two where you have to realize the horse is doing this, I need to get him back with me, I need to let him know everything is all right. And that's a big hump to get over for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that you're pointing out, though, is probably one of the biggest myths of horse ownership. And countless times we've all heard people say, I just want a horse that will take care of me.
Yeah, a push-button horse.
Yeah.
A cigarette horse, but somebody that's going to take care of me. And it's just simply a myth.
Right.
And that's you switched over to the horsemanship side that said, I need to take care of the horse.
I need to in order for you to be safe, you have to look at those two things. They're two different species, and realize if you stand back and look at all the facts about your situation and that horse's situation, his species, his culture, his language, well, guess what? Between the two of you, who is better qualified to keep you safe?
Right.
You are.
That's right.
And it does. You know, I say to people, it's a 2-year study. It's a lot of work. And you say, every time I meet my new students, they say, oh, this is an awful lot of work. But I'm having fun.
Yeah.
And you haven't gotten hurt, and you're learning more, and you're learning to relax a little more around your horse. And there are things that people now, you know, how long have you had horses? Ever since you were a young woman, you went out and got, we all have had horses all our lives. I was a professional trainer, and I didn't know this. I was taking money from people to train their horse. I was doing a decent job, but the more the horses came and the more difficult they became, because I was doing a fairly good job, I would be scared when some of these horses came, and I saw what their responses were and how they thought about things, and it's an awful spot to be in. And until I started studying, until I met Ray Hunt and started looking at the works of Tom and Bill Dorrance and Buck Brannaman, Peter Campbell, it didn't make sense to me, and that feeling did not go away. Now, I don't have that feeling anymore because I know and understand the horse, and I take responsibility, and I don't react to, what are you, afraid? Which I used to react to. I used to feel like I had to prove to people that I knew what I was doing, and I could do it, and I could make that horse do that, and I'm a trainer, and I'll show them that the horse is better off with me. That's all gone now. That doesn't matter to me anymore. What matters to me is, here we are in this ring, here's this horse, this is what I know about him, this is what I know about me, this is what I know about what I want to do. How am I going to go about doing this safely?
And you know, most of the people watching us are probably have learned the old ways.
Absolutely.
Have learned the ways where all the old ways, same as I did, and what you thought you knew. And I want the audience to understand that this is a new approach to a lot of people, but this is the right approach.
It is, and it's what drew you to it, and these two ladies to it, what draws everybody to it, is the difference in traditional training, the old way, okay, and the authentic horsemanship. If you watch somebody doing something with a horse with the traditional training, you'll eventually see that horse submit. Okay, but if you look a little bit closer, you'll see that that horse has got a brace in him somewhere. He's not real happy about being there. He's not there 100% with the person. And then you look at the authentic horsemanship, and the end result of that is a willing partner. And it takes work, just like any relationship. It takes work to develop that mutual respect and get that understanding. But those of us that have taken the time and taken the step in and spent some time studying realize that's the feeling we've been looking for. That's the feeling we want.
That's right.
We don't want to be thinking about what my horse might do. Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? When you were trying to relax and have a conversation with somebody or go on a trail ride, you shouldn't be wondering about what might happen, the bad things that might happen. You shouldn't have to deal with that fear.
Right, and it's prevalent. I think it's,
you can try to mask it, but the horse
tells
you it's still there.
And also, horses will always do that when they're when you're out or anywhere. They will always, and many times what humans do, or I've been guilty of, they will become a lot. You know, they are looking out, and you do the same thing. Oh God, what
might happen?
What
What's
might
going to
happen?
happen?
So in other words, you tie in immediately with them,
So
and instead of like going, oh.
This is what's happening. This is what I'm going to do.
And this is what I need to do to help.
If we can put up the first slide of Laddie there on the screen. This is a picture that I wanted to show for self-preservation. This is what might happen all of a sudden. This little guy's got all 4 feet off the ground.
Yes.
Oh, he's galloping.
Yeah, actually what happened was we were out on a trail ride after a workshop coming back down my driveway, and actually what happened is Laddie turned to watch us. He turned quickly to watch us, and when he did, because the photographer told me, a stone hit that metal gate and made a pinging noise, and he went boom, and he was able to get a picture of him with all 4 feet off the ground. So tell me, when you see that picture, if you were standing next to that, how would you feel? But this is a classic example of self-preservation. Something happened that that horse did not understand, and the first natural instinct is to flee. If the horse is confined, he's going to fight you.
Well, the problem is if you're on top of him, if he's going straight, that's one thing. But usually he spins, and then your eyeballs hit the back of your head.
Right.
When he goes so fast, and you're.
So the reason we study those 5 parts of the circle. We study the 5 parts of the circle to learn how a horse arranges himself to make certain movements, and then we transfer that. All of the work that we do on the ground when we get up on the horse, that's what we practice, are the 5 different parts of the circle. The reason we practice that is so that we learn how to feel what a horse is doing when his hind foot is up underneath him. What does that feel like? What does it feel like when he shifts his balance back? Where is he going? What foot is going where next? And then you learn to feel that energy coming up, and you learn how to redirect it. That's what basically in a nutshell, and that's what it takes 2 years. This isn't something that comes overnight, because there is, as Lois said, a lot of technical stuff to go into it, a lot of emotional things, that you have to deal with, a lot of old ways. I was told this, well, I don't think this is going to work because I was told this. So it takes 2 years to actually observe the work and then begin to incorporate it into you and what you and your horse does. And, everybody is there to help everybody out. We support everybody on that.
Margaret, to me, when I'm listening to you speak, it sounds like it also develops a certain amount of intelligence in the person riding. And I was going to say, what would you have done with that horse that we just saw if you were in the ring with him on the ground? But I want to finish this thought. I find it, as the beginner here, that I have to train my mind to feel. Usually when I've ridden, I ride with my own body. I don't even think about the horse's body. Okay? Not at all. Now I have to start riding by what they call, I have to feel in my hips where that back foot is and all that. That takes a certain amount of challenging your brain and making you focus on something which I believe will eventually come naturally.
Right.
But right now, for me, it is not natural. But at least I'm not worrying about my posture all the time. I'm trying to think of the horse, but very difficult.
That's where it comes in with it's the technical skills that you need, and then the harder thing is your mindset.
Yeah.
Up here.
And you've got to get both of those going.
And the mindset comes, correct me if I'm wrong, Lois and Noelle, but for me, the mindset came when I saw the proof of the pudding.
Right.
The mindset came when I first saw Ray Hunt, and I said, that's what I want to know and understand. That's the way I want to be with a horse.
That's how I felt when I first saw you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
See?
When I first saw you that one day, when I went very skeptical of, I've heard all people who think they know something, I've heard it all. That's how I connected to you. You were like a twin for what Ray Hunt did for you, you did for me.
Right.
But the mindset, it takes a while. You can identify that you want to have the mindset, but actually developing the muscle memory
that goes with it.
Right.
Well,
is
most
brutal.
riders are all about the muscle and the fitness and the posture and,
Right.
and being fit. And that is all important. That is very important if you're going to compete, if you're going to go further and do things. What's more important than that for folks like us, or for people who want to learn more, people who want to ride for pleasure or just do small time stuff, is balance.
Balance. Yeah.
Balance. And through this work and through following herd rules and understanding this, you learn how to teach your horse balance, to take care of himself. It comes through respect. You know, there's all of these things tie in together, and it takes 2 years to learn. So let's come up with we've got 3 shots of, this is a Appaloosa horse that I worked with back during that time. His name was Buzz. And we'd like to put the photos up of Buzz. There's 3 of them. And that has to do with your next, first you have your self-preservation, then you have pecking order. And so the way this photo ties into pecking order is this horse had no idea where he belonged in the herd. He was brand new, he was a rescue horse. He was a horse that was bought for a small child. And he was a little bit hard to handle in situations because he wanted to get away if he didn't understand. And we needed to calm him down and help him understand what his job is. Lots of times when I'm in that situation, if I have a horse I can ride to do that, it helps. My horse helps me talk with the other horse and say, this is what's expected of you. This is the herd leader. I want you to yield your hind quarter. And now you need to back up. Now move the front end over there. And this is me getting that. Let's put the second shot up. Once Buzz understood that, and we go to shot 2, see how relaxed and willing that horse is to follow me. They're slacking the rope, and he's like, okay, now I know what's expected of me.
Yeah.
I can go along. And then the third shot, he learned how to follow a lead well enough, so he walked through a swimming pool with his owner. Okay? And then we have another set of photos. This is a student, Nancy, that came to me about the same time. She had a wonderful warm blood horse. She was trying to get him going. We got him under saddle. She's going on her own. But when the horse got nervous, he would raise his head. The head would come up, and she would try to take the reins and get control of him. And when she tried to do that, he would just, you can see he's kind of setting his jaw. Let's look at the second photo. This is what he would do when she tried to take a hold of the reins to get control. And if you've ever ridden a horse in that, that's pretty scary.
It is. You have no control.
There's no connection there.
No connection.
There's no connection there. So what I'm teaching Nancy about is pressure and release, the language we use with the horse, and how you need to stay there a little bit longer. Just wait. Remember how we talked about a horse can move in 6 different directions. When I put pressure on that bit in that horse's mouth, he's going to do something. He's going to say, is it up? Is it right? Is it left? Is it down? Is it forward? Is it back? How can I get rid of you?
Yeah.
How can I get rid of you? If you're pulling on the reins, it's a force, and the horse is going to fight to get rid of it. If you put pressure on those reins, you put steady pressure on those reins, and you wait, and you just sit there and be still and wait, you'll feel the horse think up, down, this way. And when you feel the horse think in the direction that you wanted, which in this case was down, could we put the third picture up, please? See the difference in the way that horse is standing now? See how relaxed he is? His head is down. Because I stayed with him until he tried to put his head down, and I just let him go. He put his head down. He was free to do it. He thought about it a minute. I told her, just sit still and leave him alone, and I stood there, and it took about 40 seconds. Pretty soon he gave a big sigh. He gave a chew. And then she picked the reins up and took a hold. I said, take a hold of the reins. As soon as she put pressure on the reins, his head started to come up, and I said, just keep the pressure there. And he brought his head back down again and said, what would you like?
And as soon as he does that, you release.
You release, you know. And if you're trying to teach soft feel or anything, if you think about it, if you've got steady pressure in a horse's mouth, most riding instructions, when you take riding lessons or driving lessons, excuse me, it's called contact.
Right.
Oh, contact.
Contact.
I remember that.
You need
right.
more contact.
Contact.
You give him more contact. You don't have enough contact. That's
right.
not the way I approach it, and that's not the way horsemanship approaches it. It's the language is pressure and release. So you put a certain amount of pressure on those reins in that horse's mouth, steady pressure, and you wait, and you let him search. And when he searches in the direction you want, you release the pressure. Picking up a soft field, you can take that pressure up. And the other thing about that is, Noelle and I can demonstrate it for you. Put your hand up. If she's resisting me and I'm pulling on her like that, I'm pulling, and she decides, okay, I'll give over. Look what happens. Because I'm pulling. Now I'm going to put steady pressure on her, and she's going to give to me. Look what happens. Did you see the hands move? When you're pulling on a horse and he gives, you take up all that slack. There's no freedom there. But if you put steady pressure on that horse and that horse gives, he gives himself. You can feel him giving. You give the freedom. And those are all skills that have to be learned and practiced. And we do exercises like this with each other. So that it's not such a big deal when we get on the horse. And lots of times somebody will be working through something with one of the horses and we'll all stop because we want to see how that horse responds. We want to see again how well that works and what a difference it makes with the horse.
Yes, and I've practiced bringing that's one of
lowering the head.
Lowering the head. That's one of the first things that I was taught. And just to hold the pressure, and then when he brings his head down, release him, because the release is the reward.
It's the freedom.
The same thing with the soft feel. I had never ridden like that, where get a soft feel, just a little pressure. As soon as I feel his head go, and we go forward.
Right.
Yeah.
But what you're learning is you're learning to feel when the horse is with you.
Right.
And then you learn how to keep the horse with you.
Well, so often, Margaret, we hear about keeping the horse on the vertical. And you see the horses behind it in dressage, you see them that way. That's a way to subtly keep your horse on. You don't have to keep holding him there.
Right.
He should stay on that vertical, and then what happens if he doesn't? You just...
Right. He should stay on the vertical, but if you watch a horse move naturally, okay, what happens is as they reach the hind foot up underneath them to move, to take a stride forward, the nose comes out a little bit, and then it comes back. So most riding instruction, they want the horse on the vertical, and what happens is they put them on the vertical and drive them into the bit, and then if something happens a little quick or sudden, they take up on the reins, so your horse winds up behind the vertical. That's not what you want. That screws things up here. It's a false frame. So what you do is you allow the horse to go and then show him where, and go and then show him where. And what that does is that keeps fluid forward movement. The horse is free to reach under, push himself forward into your hand, into the bit, know what you want, and then take another stride. So that's a natural movement that is restricted with bitting rigs or side reins. You just put it there and let him go. If you adjust it right so that he has a little nose room to actually go forward, that makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference. That's why I used to wonder, I used to think it was beautiful dressage when you saw these horses in the Grand Prix and the high levels. They looked like they were mechanical horses, stiff. And then I watched Vienna, the Lippes Honors, and they were doing the same thing, but it was graceful and smooth, and the horse was, they were together, and the horse wasn't like a wind-up toy. Like you wound something up, and that's what he was doing. And it must be very uncomfortable for the horse.
Dorothy and I had the privilege of going to a Baroque horse clinic, and it was great because it showed one of the top U.S. riders riding a dressage horse, and it showed one of their top riders and horses doing the same movements in the same test, and there was a distinct difference. Dressage today is not where dressage started. Dressage did start to train war horses, and they had to do certain movements, but those horses had to be with those soldiers. They had to work with they had to know their job. And that's why it looks fluid, because the horse was given the freedom and the time to learn and understand. So you get fluidity in your movement instead of bottled energy.
Right.
And you know, the bottled energy really helps the ego, and it makes for a real good show. But you know, that's what you're doing to the horse, is you're bottling his energy and moving it instead of letting him flow freely, naturally.
And I imagine a lot of those horses blow up.
Oh, they do.
They blow up.
I've seen that. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do. They actually do blow up.
And that's
they do.
probably why thoroughbreds don't work well with that kind of dressage, because it's a hot-blooded horse. And they're beautiful when they're moving thoroughbred. But how did these horses blow up? And
when I was working with competitors more, I don't work with competitors that often. In driving and in riding, dressage riders would come to me right about second level. And it was a common problem. The horse was rearing up.
Right.
The horse either stopped going forward or the horse started
Yeah.
rearing up.
to evade,
And the way, my explanation to it is, when you put pressure on a horse, he has 6 different directions he can move to get away.
Right.
And if you don't release one of those directions for him,
He's gonna
you
go
know,
right
so
up.
he goes forward, he feels pressure, you know, some of them will run back, they can't get away from it. Up is a direction for a horse.
Right.
Right.
And if they don't feel any relief and they're trying to get away, they'll go up. I've had horses go down on their knees trying to find what to do. Is it down?
Yeah.
No, it's not down. Come on, you know, try again. We'll get it after a while. But all of those things are just taking time and understanding the horse. We'll jump into the third basic characteristic is laziness. That's the nature of the horse, and it's not a bad thing. You know, people say, oh, my horse is real lazy. And my answer to that is, well, he's a horse. It's natural for a horse to be what we call lazy. But most intelligent horses, we say, oh, that's a smart horse. The intelligent horses are lazy because they naturally have to preserve themselves from the predator. They naturally have to conserve their energy, because when they need that energy, it's got to be there. It's got to be there on demand. It's got to take them far enough away so they're safe. So that's where the laziness factor comes in that basic characteristic. So you help the horse. You teach the horse the correct and balanced way is the easy way. You educate him. When he's with you, he doesn't have to be that way. He doesn't have to conserve his energy. And that you will lead him to a place where he can conserve his energy. And then you're not going to take him by surprise. You're going to say, hey, buddy, come on, let's wake up. We're going back to work. And you do that. You don't ever take him by surprise. And the horse begins to turn his trust over to you. And that laziness goes away. Well, then you put somebody on his back that doesn't know all this stuff, and all of a sudden you have a lazy horse again.
I've had them. They stop. You're kicking them. They don't want to go anywhere.
And what they're doing is they're following the rider's lead. They're following the rider's lead. The first little pony that we had there, Laddie, his owner is into her 70s. And I've had people. We just recently had a long lining workshop at the house, and one of the ladies came up to me and she said, "I can't believe the difference in that pony when you long lined it, and Eileen long lined him." And I said, "Well, what difference is that?" She says, "Well, when you long lined him, you were walking and turning and doing lateral work and stuff." And she said, "Eileen turned and did lateral work, but it was." I said, yes, because it was her responsibility to be safe, to set the pace and help him understand how he could work with her safely. And he just adapted to her lead.
To her lead.
Yeah, they do adapt to your personality and your leads. And what I find difficult to do is not to fall back on some of my old habits and have him start getting used to what he's not supposed to do. It's very hard for me not to do that. And of course, I listen to my instructor. I don't feed him, okay? But I do love the urge. I just want to give him a little piece of hay, and but we've been taught that why not to do that and all, and
just put it in a bucket.
It's do it on the ground. It's so
Took Lois about 4 years, right?
Yeah.
To stop hand
I was
feeding her
terrible
horses.
at it. But if you feed a horse treats for the hand, you're going to have a grabby horse. He's going to constantly be
looking for that.
Be going for it.
Yep.
And it can change in 20 minutes if you give a horse
Yeah.
a treat by hand
But
versus on the ground.
But on the laziness, and I don't know if Noelle has done this or whatever, but on the laziness part, I do notice it doesn't take much. Now, Calypso's 20 years old, I guess, and he's been around a lot of people, and he's getting to know me a bit, and he can be very lazy. Mm-hmm. But, you know, on Calypso, the few times I've ridden him already, if I want his energy up, if I think it, and I'm like, you know,
if you just let him know,
presence,
you know, just my presence of bringing myself
Right.
up, or even a little thing like, let's go. You know, he feels that I'm, and he does the same thing.
it's communication.
Yeah,
It's two-way communication.
Yeah, he feels the same thing that I'm now. Okay, now she's bringing her energy's up. I'm up. You know,
Right.
You know?
Right.
And many times when I've been out, sometimes if you want to, that does help. It's the human brain. You go, okay, let's go get milk. Come on, we have to go. Give yourself a justification from getting A to B. Mm-hmm. If you're having some issues with whatever it be, fear or wondering how you go, let's go. Give yourself, justify your mind to the horse right down through your body. Okay, let's go. We have a mission. Let's get it done
With intent, with a purpose.
With intent, with a purpose, and by God, when you do that, you
in
will
clear,
get there.
A clear understanding.
Very
manner.
clear.
Yep.
And I've done that many times, and I've been out on the trails by myself a lot, and it's like, and I will be sometimes I'll do a whole dialogue of a character that if I'm learning something, I do a lot of stage work, so it's like I will do some lines from that. And the horse, if he's worried about something, that all goes away.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they listen to you.
They're listening to me.
They're always
listening, and it's like this. So it's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always had a good partner. Willie was always a good partner, and Johnny like that. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And people say, I talk to my horse. I said, well, you should.
You should.
You should, because your horse, you know, and it doesn't matter what you say. It matters how.
Right.
That's right.
You say it.
It's like with a dog.
So
if you're a bad dog with a smile, they think, oh, good.
If you were out with one of your horses and you had to practice a part, and one of those part you have to worry because somebody's trying to murder you, how do you think that horse would respond?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Exactly.
That's right.
You know,
He would go, let's get out of here.
So it's just a matter of not, you know, there's this balance back and forth between not having the right information sometimes, you know, and not quite knowing how to use it when we do have it, or taking our horse for granted and thinking he already knows it because it's happened between the two of you before. You've done this every day for the past 2 weeks. Now today the horse doesn't want to do it. But, you know, you can't get upset over that because that's the horse living in the moment.
Right.
What you have to do is step back and say, okay, review the herd rules, the characteristics, the skills, the facts, and say there's something here. And I'll guarantee you, and I've proven it time and time again, if you're having a problem, you go to that outline, and there's something in that outline that has the answer to what's going on between you and the horse. Because it's all about the horse. That brings us to the last basic characteristic, which is reproduction. And that's, you know, that's a given to most people, understand that about nature, and that your stallion was put on this earth to breed mares. And unless you have a good, solid work program for that stallion, he's going to be kind of dangerous to be around because he's going to want to do what God put him on this earth to do. He's going to want to breed mares. Same thing with mares have a cycle. There are some mares, you know, God bless them, when they come into cycles, you don't even know that they're having a cycle. And then there are other ones, mares. Yeah. They're not that nice to be around, and that's because there's a hormonal effect going on there, and that affects their behavior and what they're thinking about. And you need to take that into consideration when you're working with a horse. And geldings, you don't have to worry about. The hormones out there aren't there unless they weren't castrated properly. Then the term is used, proud cut, and that means that they can still get some of those little guys floating around in there that make them act like a stallion. But those are the 4 basic characteristics of the horse, and one of the things that we cover in the classes. What I'd like to do next is we have some photos of Lois. I've asked Lois and Noelle both today to please share what it was like for you during those first 2 years.
The early years.
The early years.
This
yes.
is
I have to try to remember.
This is Lois. This is Lois learning how to get a softening, learning her position, and I want you to see where Lois is looking. She's learning to look at the feet. And I have to say, the first 2 years you spend with me, you're going to hear that phrase over and over and over and over again until you naturally look to your horse's feet. The next one is another one, the next shot, photo 2. There she is. Look at where her eyes are. They're on the horse's feet.
They are.
Which is one of the hardest things to
It is.
overcome.
It's really hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
For decades, you never even thought
I looked
about
at
the
expression.
feet.
Yeah.
Their eyes.
And you can't ride to the feet if you don't understand what the feet
What they're
are.
doing, exactly. And then there's some riding shots of Lois. We'll put them up. And this is back, these photos were taken back in 2014 and 2015. And a lot of these photos are learning about where to, under saddle, I say to people, look at where your horse's feet are going to go. And here's Lois not looking where the horse's feet are going to go. She's looking at her horse saying, what's going on? And that happens a lot. But you learn to feel that and be able to keep your eyes on the road. I say to people, look at where you're going. Look at where you're riding. Look at where you're asking your horse to put his feet. And I relate it to if you're driving the car down the highway and look at the dashboard, what's going to happen?
Well, I think one of the
That's a good
things
point.
that you taught us, which is from the old school of horsemanship, is you can never blame the horse.
That's right.
That came to my mind, yes.
That's right.
You can't
It's never
blame
the
the
horse.
horse.
It's
Yeah.
never the
You
horse.
have to take responsibility, and that you can only do that by starting understanding where are the
Right,
feet.
because you can't see the feet when you're up there.
No, but
Yeah.
you have to start from the ground up
Exactly.
to understand.
So
they're even
how was that for you for the first 2 years learning all of that?
It was a nightmare. It was really
That's good promotion.
hard.
That's a good.
No, because I ended up with 2 horses after decades of having horses, and I was young and athletic, and I could ride through anything.
Yeah.
But I got in trouble when I had 2 young horses, and I had no idea what to do. And I was living up here full time, and it was up to me. There was nobody to blame. I couldn't blame the horse. I couldn't just have somebody snap my fingers and have somebody train my horse. And when I got into trouble, that's when I found Margaret. And it took me 15 minutes into the first workshop, and I said, I'm in.
You're in.
I'm in.
You
Smart.
recognize that's what you wanted to
recognize
know.
that.
That's how you,
That's what I needed to know. Not that I knew how to do it, but watching the feet. You always watch the eyes. No,
That's right.
The horse.
That's right.
And
that-
it doesn't get you. It gets you hurt.
Yeah. Margaret, may I have to tell our audience that I bought my first horse, a 18-year-old gelding, and thankfully he was a quiet horse, and I did all the wrong things, but some right, but difficult. He had a bad habit of throwing his head. He didn't
Right.
want to take the bit. That's another one. But then a few years later, I got courage, and I bought a yearling colt.
Right.
And fortunately, he was a thoroughbred quarter horse mix, but fortunately, he ended up with the mind of a quarter horse and the beautiful body of the thoroughbred. He was a bay. And I raised him from the ground and to saddle, and I got on him when he was 4 years old. All I can say, Margaret, was he was a very forgiving horse. I was so lucky to get a horse with that kind of mind, because I made so many mistakes.
most horses have that kind of mind, Kathy.
Yes.
Because
Right.
horses,
They do.
think of the herd. The horse is a
matter the breed.
social creature. It's in his nature to get along. It's through his experiences with humans that he develops the things that aren't.
So he became nice like me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
He was following your direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I wish
Well,
I
they
had.
want to have a happy life too.
Right. Well,
Right.
that-
You know,
Right.
There are horses that are easier to get along with others. They're more cooperative. But what I find especially with an older horse, when older horses come to me, they tend to take on the baggage that their owners brought them with, or the baggage that they had before the owners brought them. They form ideas on life just like we do. And they're entitled to that. I say to people, they're entitled to their opinion, and they're entitled to ask a question. Because in authentic horsemanship, if I wanted them to submit, that would be different. That's what I grew up with, was the traditional training, where if the horse didn't do what you wanted, or you did get in trouble, you made the horse submit to what you wanted and submit to that pressure. So there was no question in his mind. It was going to be real bad if he tried to question that. You know, he was going to come up against something he didn't want to come up against, so he submitted to that. Where the horsemanship is different. It takes more work to do
now
that.
one of the things you said, we had a lesson yesterday with Cece, and we talked about what you're entitled to, what you're not entitled to, and what you have to earn. And
Yeah.
you have to earn the horse's respect. You're not just entitled to it.
Oh,
And the
That's a big one.
horsemanship gives you the tools to earn their respect in their language, rather than just thinking, I'm entitled to this horse's respect.
Yeah, there's a big difference there. And-
Huge.
And
Yeah.
if anybody any of us sitting here now, or anybody in the viewing audience, just thinks about that a little bit. I think I said on the last show, how can you love something if you don't really know what it is? How can you respect the horse unless you take the time
That's right.
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 to learn
Right,
exactly
right.
what he is as a species, his culture and his language?
Right.
Once you know that, then it's up to you to figure out how to build respect and trust and all that. But to come out and say, I love my horse, I respect my horse, and I ask you a basic question about a horse and you can't answer it, or you don't understand
Right.
it. How can you love and respect something you don't know? You love and respect your vision
Your fantasy.
and your fantasy,
Yeah.
your vision of what that
Yeah.
horse is and what that horse means to you. And I won't take that away from anybody. I have plenty of my own little fantasies and visions with horses that I wouldn't let anybody touch. Okay, I have them too. But then what I've learned throughout my lifetime is, as I've grown, a lot of those visions are actually still the same. I don't know if I'll ever attain them. And I always wanted to be a steeplechase rider.
Yeah. I watched that and go, gee, I'd love to do that.
That'd be fun.
National Velvet.
But my
Before it got
outlook and
hurt.
my demeanor and my
Right.
presentation to my horse is a whole lot different than it was once I started studying authentic horsemanship. It's a whole lot different. So we've got some pictures of Noelle. If we can put these up. And this is back from 2014. These are photos from the early years. Here, Noelle is trying to get I use obstacles, and we brought out a plastic pool. And this is Willie. He says, no way, sweetheart, I'm not going through that pool. You got to be kidding me. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So Noelle asked me about it. She says, what do we do? I said, well, you just got to think about him and what he is as a horse, and try to figure out a way to let him know it's not going to hurt him to get in that pool. So here's Noelle, and she came up with a solution. She sat down in the pool and said, well, Willie, now, if I can get in here like this and sit down, I'm not even walking through it, I'm staying here. I think it's a safe place to be, and I don't think there's any reason why you can't walk through that pool.
Remember that?
Okay,
That
and
is wonderful.
and there we go. He's walking through the pool. See?
That
Noelle probably spent a total of 10 or 12 minutes.
That was it.
Not
That
even
was
that. Doing that. Okay, and then because of that, after she warmed up and stuff, and we do this groundwork first, then we ride. And that transfers to the saddle. It gives you the confidence you need when you're riding to know where the horse's feet are. And the horses, well, they took the time to explain that to me, and nothing bad happened. Little things like that. This is another picture, and then I love this last picture because she has such an understanding of her
That's
horse.
great.
This is her doing a little gymkhana trail here on Willie. But it was simply because Noelle took the time.
Well,
She loved her horse enough to want to respect what he needed.
Right.
And we get to that point where we can't force it anymore, can we?
No, and that's why I happened upon Margaret, is that I'd had numerous experiences and I did not want to force anymore. I didn't want to force this animal that was new to me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do, I said it wasn't working. He didn't know how to lunge, and I'd take him out into a pasture and try to lunge him, and he'd rear, and I'd go, oh God, what? I thought he was, that's a bad thing.
Right.
Why is he doing,
Why?
what's the why?
Why?
He didn't understand what I wanted.
That's
He
exactly
did not understand. He
No.
really didn't, and I did not want to force. Believe me, I've been through that with other horses that I've seen people do to them that I'd hand over to, and I said no, and that's.
And it was
why.
simply Noelle didn't have the information. She knew
right.
nothing
No.
of separating the horse into 4 quarters.
No, never.
She knew
dawned
nothing
on
about
me.
saying hello and having that. She didn't have the information. She was trying as hard as she could from her heart, and she was getting more and more upset
Right.
because no matter what she did, or here's a good one, the harder I try, the worse it gets.
Yes,
How many of us have experienced that?
I know. I think
The
I sat
harder I
down-
try, the worse it gets.
Right, with
So
Margaret, and I cried.
I just have to stop, and then you go back
Right.
and try again, but you bring all of that
Right.
angst with you because all you're doing is trying again to do something that you have the same information about.
Correct.
And old information that didn't work well. You don't have anything new to bring to the platform to help that horse understand what you want.
Correct.
Well,
And
but if you
frustration
watch-
breeds anger. Frustration
Yeah.
breeds anger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big times, and
Yes.
I felt that coming to me. It's like
As
damn.
does fear.
And as fear. Those 3 things:
Yeah.
frustration, anger, and fear. Because if you're not going to win, when it's
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
But-
it should, and
But by you teaching us how to watch the feet and then direct the feet, we can work our way through it calmly.
Well, ladies, I always like to remind you we have 10 more minutes,
Oh.
which in
Goes
in
fast.
in movie time is a long time.
a long time,
We
but
have a
you-
long time, but we have 10 minutes now. So
Well, what I'd like to do is, I think we started this last week, Kathy, is to invite the audience to send in their questions
oh yes,
to be answered. And I will take it, this is a lifelong journey of mine, and now that I'm on my home stretch,
your home stretch.
We got a long way
you're
to
not
go.
alone.
We're going to
I
ride
wanna-
like the
Long way
queen
to
into
go.
I've
our
got
90s.
well, what I want to do,
right.
what's in my heart is to offer this to people, just a different perspective, a different way, think about it, talk about it. And this is a great opportunity and a free opportunity to get good information. I'm more than willing to answer anybody's questions. If they'd like to email me, there's my email is up on the screen now. If you have any questions about authentic horsemanship and what it's about or how it would apply to you in a specific situation that you have with your horse, email me the question, and Kathy and I have spoken about this, and
That's right.
we will address the questions on the show. I will give my answer, and my students will also give their take or possibly share an experience where they were in an exact same situation, and
Right.
this is how they came out of it.
Well, I think that's a wonderful idea. Taking questions and emailing you. I hope that they paid attention to the email address. We'll say it again. We'll say it a few times before we come off the air. But
Because lots of times, and all of us being horse gals, it's really hard to change, isn't it?
oh yeah, yes.
It's really hard to do something different, especially if we have a few things that are working for us. We don't really want to listen to anybody else. And I think you said there's a lot of charlatans out there trying to tell people this, that, and the other thing.
That's right.
What the difference when you start looking at the authentic horsemanship is you're going to see results that you can understand really well. And you're going to get a feeling. If you want to be with your horse and you want to learn this, you'll know. You'll get a feeling that says, that's the way I want to be with my horse.
Well, it opened up a whole new world to me, and it's been such fun to come to your workshops, Margaret. It's fun to meet all the ladies, and we have some gentlemen who have taken advantage of your method of training.
Yeah.
Of course, I ran out and had to get your book, and I've read it. And then I started to read Hunt and some of the others, and it's a whole new world.
It is.
It is, and I hope that our audience does actually want to email Margaret with her questions, because I think weekly as we do this show, it's going to be great fun for all of us. I think that hearing other people's questions and Margaret answering them is going to make for a wonderful show. And I know you'll give your email a few more times.
And we're gonna add some diversity next week. We're gonna have some gals that drive.
Oh, that's right.
One is a professional in a business, and another gal who had a D, who we've met, who's been on the show.
Great.
We'll share some of her experience with it, because it's not, like I said in the first couple of shows, there's got to be 50 or some odd disciplines out there, ways and styles of riding.
That's right.
And then driving alone has 5 or 6 different disciplines, things that you can do with a horse when you drive a horse. In horsemanship, authentic horsemanship, it doesn't matter what those things are. What matters is, do you know your partner?
Right. I mean, the long lining lessons were great, and I do that with, I have a young horse now, Des, and he's learning to long line.
And it's fun.
It's such fun.
Because you do everything that's on the ground. You learn the footwork on the ground. You
Long
apply it to the ground.
driving,
You
as
apply
I
it to,
said,
you can, because when you're driving them, you do have them in movement, and you are in their mouth. You are on the bit.
Right.
Where once you get up in the saddle, you have to sometimes, and that's not cheating. If you have to look down to see where your foot is, you know, that's not cheating at all.
That's right.
Oh,
And
good.
You know, the fun thing is that no matter what age you are, if you can start and you can continue going safely.
Yeah, you don't have to be young
Even
and
when you
fit,
get-
and
right.
You don't have to be.
And the boomer cowgirls here, you know, we just
I think a lot of people.
enjoy it.
I think a lot of people don't realize that the same methods you teach can be incorporated into driving.
Exactly.
And into life.
And into life, and actually how you interact with other human beings. There's a lot of lessons.
Well, that's very true.
Very
Yeah,
That's
a
very
lot
true.
of lessons learned here on that.
Es-
You know, we have 5 more minutes now.
I can say, especially if you go into a barn or boarding barn with a lot of show people or whatever they're doing, discipline, you have that right about how you relate with people, because a lot of people, how they relate with one another is exactly how they're relating to their horses.
Yes,
many times.
right. That's right.
And, which
And
I
they don't have their respect.
I have
Yeah.
observed, you know.
Well, we
which-
say the difference between authentic horsemanship and the traditional training or ways. You know, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it and what you get out of each one. Authentic horsemanship is a way of life, and
Correct.
the traditional training is a free ride. Because a lot of people that do practice their riding skills and stuff do nothing to train their horse. And I'm not saying anything bad about trainers. I was one for years and years. And we need trainers out there, and we need good trainers out there. Okay, but trainers are generally, and the difference between a trainer and a professional horseman, which many people don't know the difference. The trainer is discipline specific. The trainer will teach you your dressage or your driving or your roping cows or your eventing, where what the horseman does is just teach you about the horse.
Yeah.
It's
Teaches
your
you
foundation.
to have if you're going to have a team with your horse, a partnership with your horse, the more you know about the horse and the more the horse knows about you. But when you get to that point where you don't know that much about the horse, but you're still going, and you're going on grit and you're going on physical strength and stamina, the horse knows that. The horse knows when you're not there with him.
You know, Margaret,
Yeah.
that brings
Very
me
good
to the
point.
point where you have young children, young people, or even adults. All they want to do is they have the urge to want to ride. They love the horse.
Right.
They don't want to have the patience to learn the proper way. They just want to get on the horse and be a yahoo or do all that. They want to show in the ring.
Yeah.
And they can learn that with a push-button horse or a horse that's been taught to take you around a ring, and all you have, you know, the horses we described. But it's not really horsemanship, is it?
It's not horsemanship, and it's not that, and that isn't bad. It's just that that's what they want to do with horses. that's the way they want horses in their life, or that's what horses mean to them. And maybe all they want to do is ride a little bit and go to a show and win a ribbon. They don't want to spend the time. And that's okay. That's why they go to their trainers and they just do one thing, they just do their one event, and they study that event intently.
So we have 1 minute left. So Margaret, I think maybe the minute should be telling your website, your email again.
Okay, if they want to put it up on the,
yes,
if they will put that up on the screen, how to contact me, please email questions into the show, and we will answer them for you. Not just me, but whoever is appearing that week, and Kathy too, will share that experience and try to help you understand what authentic horsemanship is all about and why we think it's great, and we'd like to have you give it a try.
Definitely. And your
Wonderful.
horse would too.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The
Right.
horse will love you for it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
and I also have to say, before we go off the air, this year it all began. We've been again calling ourselves the Boomer Cowgirls.
The Boomer Cowgirls.
Oh, the Boomer Cow.
We're the Boomers,
We're
right?
the Boomer
The
Cowgirls.
Oh, the baby boomers?
Yeah. The
We're the
boomer
baby boomer
Yes.
cowgirls?
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think we should wrap it up.
Okay.
And I'll just tell my producer and his assistant that we're probably going to wrap up the show. I'm going to thank everybody for watching my show, Town Talk. I'm very excited, as I told my audience before, that in the previous show, that this is my passion, this is what I'll be doing, and you can tune in every week on Monday evenings at 7:30 in the local Valley stations on Comcast, and you can see this show. It's up on Facebook. I post it, and you can also, in fact, go to YouTube and find the shows. And if you need to contact me, just do so on Facebook. This is Kathy Johnson, wishing all of you a good evening and a better tomorrow. Take